the risks of doing nothing. And I guess that just means that we've set up a Magento store, and let's just say we set up a Magento store in 2008, and we're just going to let it go until 2028. Jay, what do you see as the biggest risk there?
I would say really around the biggest risk, really what you're asking, I think, is the biggest risk of doing nothing. And when I look at Magento storefronts, you just never can take the position, really any e-commerce, not to pick on Magento, but really any e-commerce storefront, it takes diligence and preparation and continued investment in your e-commerce shopping cart to make sure that you're protected against the latest threats. The attacks are a moving target. New groups come out, new vulnerabilities are found, and as they become, as vulnerabilities are discovered and patches made available, maintenance of your site is critical in order to keep up with those security threats. I mean, one of the biggest challenges that I see in the community is from unpatched Magento storefronts, where essentially by discovering a vulnerability, creating a patch for it, and then explaining to the community, hey, this vulnerability has been found, here's a code patch that closes that vulnerability to the bad guys. The good and the bad of that, I mean, the lead time there, that they're teaching the bad guys essentially how to get access to an unmaintained store. And that's a side effect of this, but it's the right thing to do, is to put out these patches to be able to close those holes that are found and known. And so publicizing that really puts, there's an onus on the merchant and their system integrator to stay up to date with those patches. So as those vulnerabilities are discovered, applying the code fixes that close those vulnerabilities so that the store stays protected. And then really, that's a must. I mean, it's just in terms of care and feeding and maintenance of your store, the notion that you could, say, launch a Magento storefront and then leave it up for 20 years and expect everything to just run along smoothly without issue is kind of misplaced. It's sort of, it's just not the right attitude. I mean, if you think about that, this is how you're, for many customers, especially with COVID, we're discovering, many customers that had storefronts, those storefronts are closed or people aren't going, and the e-commerce presence is now even more dominant in terms of a revenue stream for that merchant. And, along with that comes care and feeding and maintaining the site, keeping it current, and protecting it against new and emerging security vulnerabilities.
Yeah, and I think we've seen now Magento, or Adobe has released their final patches for Magento, and those should be done now, both on the enterprise and the community platform. And there won't be any new patches coming for Magento Enterprise or open source. So now
from
is
Adobe.
the time. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, just from Adobe. So that's certainly, I mean, the end of life for them means that they're no longer going to be providing patches to those platforms, and so their bug programs have ended. And also too, I mean, you mentioned the other day even, Magento 2, Magento 2.0 is end of life as well. So having to upgrade there.
Yeah, definitely. And that's you made a good point that from Adobe or Magento, there's no more patches, but there are people out there, and I think we'll kind of cover some of those. There are people out there that are going to be providing patches for your Magento 1 store. And we're going to go into later in our webinar today about how those different services can help you stay up to date, and how those patches coming from a third-party vendor will keep you in compliance with your PCI moving forward, and especially making sure that you've done all your due diligence on what you found in there. And I think that with the vibrant community that Magento has, we are going to see people finding, exploiting, but then patching those vulnerabilities that we found, or that they have found in Magento. I will say that the clients that we've come across, or people that have contacted us with either a security breach, or they've come to us and they're a version behind, or I think it's worse if you're in that version and you're maybe you haven't applied a security patch in a year and you're just kind of waiting to do them all at once or something, you did touch on a really good point on making sure that your site is up to date always. And the most important part is to make sure that those patches are applied. And Adobe slash Magento has been very good now on their current version and giving us a patch only version so we can apply security patches. And all the patches that have come out for Magento 1, including this last one, have been around security and not features. So it's very important to continue to do those.